Hi, this is Daniel Brown. I wanted to give you a brief introduction into Excel. First off, I wanted to just mention Mac versus Windows. The Mac version and the Windows version of Excel are slightly different. If you own a Mac, it's not a disaster, but really you are in a business school and your company, when you eventually go and get hired, will most likely be on a Windows version of Excel rather than the Mac. You are responsible for knowing how to do everything regardless of what computer you have. And my strong suggestion is if you ever replace your Mac laptop over the next year or two, or are about to, I would go with the Windows version. The shortcuts are slightly different, the functionality is slightly different, and knowing how to use the Windows version of Excel when you end up in that eventual job is going to help you. And the next thing I want to talk about is Microsoft Office Specialist. So I'm going to follow some of the curriculum, not all, but some of the curriculum from the Microsoft Office Specialist, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft Excel Expert exams. Again, if you're on a Mac, you might be out of luck. My expectation is that you will not be completely prepared for the exams, but you'll find preparation a little bit easier after this course. And now the reason for this exam is as follows. What line do you have on your resume and which one would you prefer? Almost everyone has something like proficient at Excel written on their resume. Because everyone has it, that means it doesn't actually say very much. And again, proficient at Excel, if I read that on your resume, I wouldn't know whether that meant you used Excel 3 or 4 times or you're an expert. By getting the certification, you are making a statement about your Excel usage. You are differentiating yourself from other users of Excel. And your resume is a place where you are going to try to differentiate yourself. So again, I would recommend, if you have the time, to get yourself certified. Now, Excel is a programming language. It doesn't look like a programming language, but it actually is. It is relatively easy to use, and it's more difficult to use well. I have spent hours and hours debugging Excel spreadsheets, and I predict in this course I will spend a reasonable amount of time helping debug your spreadsheets. The better you lay out your spreadsheets, the easier it is to find problems. So several tips. One, separate data calculations, input and outputs. So keep things separate. Don't mix where people put data, where people put inputs, where they see the outputs. Don't mix an input and a calculation together. The primary reason for this is one, you've got a user. When you're writing an Excel spreadsheet, you've got a user who's going to look at it. And second, again, back to that debugging, back to that when there are mistakes, if everything is mixed up, it's actually very difficult to figure out what's going on. Second, don't hard code numbers. If the interest rate is 3%, then make 3% an input and refer to it. Don't, in the middle of your formula, have the 3% reference. Then if you changed your mind and said, actually, it's supposed to be 4%, it becomes much, much more difficult to find the numbers and fix them. Next, if you have a column or row of formulas, try to make it so that you can copy the first one to the others. So copy the first cell in a column down to all of the cells in the column. That way you can tell that you know that this particular column has a particular formula and you don't have to worry that the 17th row is something different. Use named ranges. We'll learn how to do this in the second Excel project. Again, this makes your formulas easier to read. If you have that interest rate, call it yield. And then when you refer to yield in your formulas, it isn't equals cell A17, it's equals yield. And now you can read your formula more easily. Have numbers appear only once. So if you have a date, which is your valuation date on your spreadsheet, have a single cell that contains it and refer to that cell everywhere. Don't have 3 valuation dates, all of which need to be kept in sync with each other. Okay, a few tips here at the end of this. Some navigation shortcuts, which are really important to learn. You will get through Excel much more quickly without the mouse. So Control Page Up and Control Page Down switches between worksheets. Control Home takes you to the top left corner of a worksheet. End Home takes you to the bottom right corner of a worksheet. Finally, Control Arrow, so either Control Right, Control Left, Control Up, or Control Down, takes you in the direction of the arrow until the cells change. If your cells have a formula, then it goes to the last formula, say, in the column. If your cells are empty, then it goes to the next formula, the next cell with something in it. Now, these shortcuts are really, really useful, and my strong suggestion is to just practice. One of your goals and one of your ways in which you become very fast in Excel is by not reaching for the mouse. Last, on Windows, you can use the Alt key. So this lets you access menu items and the ribbon without touching the mouse. And again, so if you want to work quickly in Excel, then learning to use the Alt key, learning these shortcuts to get around the spreadsheet will make you much, much more efficient. One of the probably apocryphal stories, but one of the stories one hears about Goldman Sachs training in Excel is the first thing they do is they sit you down at your computer and then they walk by all of the desks and cut the mouse cord, and force you to learn how to use Excel without the mouse. So I strongly recommend that. You will see me, if we're discussing a problem, you will see me using shortcuts or hear me using shortcuts and moving through Excel reasonably rapidly. All right, well, good luck. There are short videos covering almost all of the topics and functionality that we are going to use in Excel. And if you have questions, you're more than welcome to send me emails.